Tonight, Chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, says political parties and civil society organizations have a role to play in addressing the menace of vote buying. Human rights lawyer Femi Falana raises an alarm over what he describes as an attempt by some elements to sabotage the 2023 general elections. And security forces on high alert in various parts of the country following attacks in Bauchi, Benue, Kaduna and Zamfara, leaving scores of people dead, just as military airstrike targeting terrorists in Matumji community of Zamfara state leaves over 60 dead.
Business news, National Bureau of Statistics says revenue from value-added tax rises by over 4% to more than 625 billion naira in the third quarter of 2022.
On sports news tonight, France and Real Madrid striker Karim Benzema brings down the curtain on his international playing career a day after France lost the World Cup final to Argentina.
And from the nation's capital, Federal High Court Abuja sentences Director General of the Labour Party Presidential Campaign Council, Inauguration, to 2 years in prison following his conviction over money laundering charges.
And on the foreign scene, the U.S. Congressional Committee investigating last year's storming of the Capitol is expected to unveil criminal referrals against former President Donald Trump. Financial inducement, or what is known as vote buying during elections, can be reduced only if citizens themselves, as well as the civil society and political parties, get involved. Well, this is coming from the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, during a stakeholders summit on the use of money during elections in the nation's capital, Abuja. Also at the event, the EFCC and the Nigerian police say those arrested for vote buying are facing prosecution. Our correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
Director General, National Broadcasting Commission, Director General, ACON.
Over the years, the use of money to influence voters' decisions during elections has been a major challenge to free, fair and credible polls in Nigeria, which is why the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has convened the stakeholder summit to address the issue.
The concerted actions of citizens are crucial. Citizens must reject inducements to sway their votes through vote buying. They must also engage effectively in stopping the negative use of money in our electoral process generally by reporting cases to INEC and other agencies.
Stakeholders, including representatives of security agencies, anti-graft agencies, broadcast and advertising regulatory bodies, political parties and the civil society organizations, among others, are attending the summit, and they highlight the various efforts they are making to tackle the menace of vote buying.
A lot of arrests have been made, especially of persons buying voter registration cards as prelude to rigging the elections. Some political thugs have also been arrested and are being prosecuted in courts of competent jurisdiction.
The Commission had in 2019 deployed its operatives on polling units across the country to discourage inducement of voters. Offenders were arrested, prosecuted and convicted. These efforts were also repeated at the Osun and Ekiti state election, as well as the recently concluded election primaries of political parties.
Media organizations are also charged to maintain professionalism.
You must not allow politicians and patriotic politicians, not all politicians. We have patriotic ones, we have those that are bent toward destroying the country. And your platform must not be used to destroy this country.
Nigerians have a role to play generally in ensuring that our democracy survives. And for us in channels, we'll be at the driver's seat to provide the news people can use in the interests and development of our country.
However, representatives of political parties present have some reservations.
You can still prosecute those candidates that gave money during primary election. What are you doing about that, sir?
Some political parties have budgeted 10 billion naira per state in this election. We are watching. You know it. What is possible is possible. What is not possible is not possible.
Channels Television makes efforts to get the representative of the EFCC boss and the ICPC chairman to speak on the status of those arrested for vote buying during the governorship elections in Ekiti and Osun states. However, they declined to speak, while the INEC chairman gives a succinct response on what the commission will do about allegations of financial inducement in the last party primaries.
INEC is neither a vote buyer nor a vote seller.
Despite the pessimism expressed by some members of political parties at the summit, the INEC chairman says that the commission remains resolute in delivering free, fair and credible election to Nigerians. He says that the fight against the use of money during election is one that INEC is not ready to back out from. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, human rights lawyer Mr. Femi Falana has raised an alarm over what he describes as an attempt by some elements to sabotage the 2023 general elections. Well, the senior advocate of Nigeria says his fears are based on the series of attacks on INEC officers, bandits' mayhem, and the activities of some political actors in the country, among other security breaches. Making reference to areas still controlled by armed gangs, Mr. Falana notes that as the security of electoral officials and election materials cannot be guaranteed in the seized territories, the authorities of the armed forces should ensure that an enabling environment exists for the conduct of elections in all the states of the Federation, while calling on security agencies to apprehend those he describes as anti-democratic forces bent on truncating the polls. Mr. Falana notes that if the security agencies fail to intervene and restore peace in the troubled areas, the elections may be postponed indefinitely, which could have serious implications for the polls next year. Well, speaking of security, it's been a challenging one for security operatives in different parts of the country where bandits attacked several communities. In Kaduna State, northwest Nigeria, at least 37 people have been killed in fresh attacks on Kara local government area of the state. But the attacks took place separately on Sunday night at Malagum 1 and Sogwon communities in Kagoro Chiefdom. The chairman of Kara local government area, Mr. Atuk Stephen, told Channels Television that the bandits carried out the coordinated attacks in the two communities at about 11 p.m. on Sunday. He also says that the bandits burnt down over 100 houses and destroyed many vehicles and motorcycles during the attack, leaving the entire community deserted. Meanwhile, Governor Nasir El-Rufai has condemned the attacks. The governor, through his Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Mr. Samuel Arawan, described the attacks as inhuman, considering the efforts of government, security forces and traditional institutions, as well as critical stakeholders within the last week. In neighboring Zamfara state, no fewer than 68 persons have been reportedly killed and about 40 others wounded during an air bombardment of terrorist hideout by the military at the Mutumji community in Mara local government area of the state. Residents of the troubled community say the incident occurred when an Air Force fighter jet was pursuing the terrorists who ran into the market. The military, in a statement, however, denied that civilians were killed in the bombardment carried out by the Air Force.
It's a day residents of Mutumji community in Maru local government area of Zamfara state will not forget, as no fewer than 68 persons were reportedly killed, with 40 others said to be wounded during an air raid on terrorist hideouts by the Nigerian Air Force. A resident of Mutumji, Saidu Ishaka, confirmed that 68 members of the community who lost their lives have been buried, while 12 of those injured were taken to Yeraman Bakura Specialist Hospital in Guzo.
What we know is that about 68 people were killed and about 40 others injured, with some taken to the hospital for treatment.
Nuhu Dansadao, who is a resident of the Dansadao Emirate, says the terrorists mobilized more groups and launched an attack on Malele community, forcing the residents to put a distress call to the military, and they promptly responded.
You cannot set a promise, an agenda with a bandit, and he may not fulfill it. They are always deceivable. So this community denied to rearrange and settle with the bandits. So that is why the Muna cliques and the Jamburos, Aleru, Kachala, Black, and all other bandit leaders, they were trying to wipe away that community, to clear them out from the area.
The Zamfara State Commissioner for Security and Home Affairs, Maman Safe, who visited those wounded at the State Specialist Hospital, describes the incident as callous and asked security forces to help in flushing out the terrorists.
Please, we are investigating the incident and it will be revealed very soon. Okay. Some places getting worse, some places getting better. In fact, the activity of our security agency should be commended. In fact, they are working tirelessly to ensure that normalcy is restored in Zamfara State. They should remain more committed and more gallant. We have appreciated their level of gallantry, and we are still requesting that they should speed up and then be more gallant.
Meanwhile, the military has described as untrue a report that some civilians were killed in a bombardment carried out by the Nigerian Air Force on Sunday in Zamfara, saying the report is only intended to take the sail from the successes of the military.
Well, another attack has been reported in Benue State, this time on Adaka community near Makurdi, the state capital, with 3 people said to have been killed. Adaka community is about 20 kilometers and an hour's drive from Makurdi. The State Police Command is yet to make any official statement on the incident, but it was gathered that the attack was unprovoked, with the invaders shooting sporadically and injuring several persons in the area. Benue State has consistently witnessed attacks by gunmen, mostly suspected to be herders, leading to the killing of many residents and displacing many others. Also in Bauchi State, 12 bandits, including their kingpin, Madaki Mansur, have been killed by the Bauchi State Police in Alkaleri Forest. The bandits had been terrorizing Alkaleri local government area of Bauchi State and other neighboring states of Taraba, Plateau and Gombe. According to a press statement by the Bauchi State Police spokesperson Ahmed Wakili, at about 2:30 a.m. today, a joint operation of security operatives engaged the bandits in 4 hideouts, Mansur, Digari, Guana and Dagin Malam in Alkaleri Forest. But during the operation, some of the bandits are said to have escaped to nearby forests with possible gunshot wounds, and efforts have been intensified to apprehend them. Well, in part 2, after the break, Rivers State government inaugurates the family court to protect children against abuse and molestation. That's in a moment. Please join us again.
This is what they call 21st century. When my customer say I want to use POS, I will just bring out my phone, open the application, use this, press this code. I don't have anyone using POS anymore.
You're welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10, live on Channels Television. A reminder of our major stories. Chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, says citizens, political parties and civil society have a role to play in addressing the menace of vote buying. Human rights lawyer Femi Falana raises an alarm over what he describes as an attempt by some elements to sabotage the 2023 elections. Security forces on high alert in various parts of the country following attacks in Bauchi, Benue, Kaduna and Zamfara, leaving scores of people dead, just as military airstrike targeted terrorists in the Mutumji community of Zamfara State leaves over 60 dead. On foreign scene, U.S. Congressional Committee investigating last year's storming of the Capitol is expected to unveil criminal referrals against former President Donald Trump. Rivers State has joined the list of states that have inaugurated the family court to protect children against abuse. The inauguration, which comes less than 2 weeks after the signing into law of the repealed child's right law in the state, is seen as a major leap in the effort of the government to do justice to all manner of people, whether old or young. Well, speaking at the event in Port Harcourt, the state capital, Governor Nyesom Wike urges members of the bench to discharge their duties without emotions.
This gathering of judicial officers, government officials, parents and children at the ceremonial court of the Rivers State Chief Judge is for the opening of the State Family Court, a milestone in the delivery of justice for children. The ceremony is predicated on the recent signing into law of the Repeal Child Rights Act by Governor Nyesom Wike, which guarantees the state's unhindered rights to fully protect children, in line with the dictates of international treaties which Nigeria is committed to.
The Rivers State Judicial have for some years now worked toward the commencement of the family court in Rivers State as matters pertaining to children were handled by juvenile courts at the magistrate court level and specially designated court at the High Court level, just to make up for the non-availability of the family court.
The court, with smart features for e-filing and e-assignment of cases and options for online lodging of complaints by parents and guardians, will be presided over by the wife of the governor, Justice Eberechi Suzette Wike.
I want to assure everyone that the Rivers State Family Court will robustly apply and enforce every relevant international, national, and local legal instrument in discharging its responsibility to protect and advance the best interests of our children in Rivers State.
Although it's happening many years after the domestication of the child rights law in the country, Governor Wike feels fulfilled that it is finally taking off.
Children see how they suffer. Most of them are defied at their early ages, and some people cannot stand firm to say that, look, I will not accept this. I must prosecute this matter to the last to see there is justice. But you hear, well, my brother, after all, what has happened has happened.
A book, The Child, Ethics and the Law, is also unveiled to guide children on their rights and responsibilities, as well as the responsibilities of parents and the government. The expectation is that all of these efforts will drastically reduce cases of defilement, sexual violence, domestic abuse, bullying, and other such crimes.
Well, let's now head over to our Abuja studios for more stories on the news at 10 with Terry Ikumi. Well, good evening, Terry. It's good to have you back.
Good evening, Kyle. It's been quite a while. It's nice to see you as well. Let's stay with the courts. Justice Ijeoma Ojukwu of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has sentenced the Director General of the Presidential Campaign Council of the Labour Party, Mr. Doyin Okukpe, to 2 years in prison. Delivering judgments, Justice Ojukwu sentenced him for contravening Section 16, subsection 1 and 2 of the Money Laundering Act, for accepting cash payments without going through a financial institution in excess of the amount allowed. Dr. Okukpe has, however, met his bail conditions and has now been released.
The Director General of the Presidential Campaign Council of the Labour Party, Mr. Doyin Okukpe, is at the Federal High Court, Abuja, for the verdict of a suit instituted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The commission is accusing him of receiving funds amounting to over 700 million naira from the former National Security Advisor, retired Colonel Sambo Dasuki. He is accused of collecting the money when he served as a senior special assistant on media to former President Goodluck Jonathan. His wife Omolara and son Adesukomi took turns pleading with the court to temper justice with mercy. Also, a former governor of Anambra State, Chief Chukwuemeka Ezeife, urged the court to take cognizance of the fact that the defendant was a first-time offender. In her judgment, Justice Ojukwu further held that the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission successfully established its case against the defendant. The court added that it had also observed the defendant's demeanor while his trial lasted, as well as the fact that he had no previous record of conviction. While he was acquitted of counts 1 to 33, the court found him guilty on counts 34 to 59. He was subsequently handed 2 years on each of the 26 charges, though the court rules that the sentence will run concurrently for 2 years. The court refused to make an order for him to be kept in prison custody, as the sentence has the option of a fine. However, he was given until 4 o'clock on Monday evening to pay the fine.
So he has been convicted, and then if by the time we get the judgment proper, we will still study the judgment and look at the other counts that he was discharged and acquitted. We will look at it very well and take the necessary decision. Dr. Doyin Okukpe is just a victim of a honest mistake and a victim of circumstance. He was found not guilty of count 1 to 37.
which borders on money laundering, fraud, corruption, and misappropriation of the monies he took from the office of NSA. But he had issues when it comes to count 38 to 59, which provides that he was guilty of an offense for collecting money in excess of 5 million, which is the permissible threshold under the Money Laundering Act.
Nevertheless, the defendant was able to pay the 13 million naira fine as stated by the court.
Still from the courts, the appeal court sitting in Abuja has declared Lawal Usman as a candidate of the People's Democratic Party for Kaduna Central Senatorial District. The appellate court also set aside the decision of the Federal High Court Kaduna, which nullified the primary election for the senatorial district and ordered a rerun. Delivering judgment, Justice Peter Afen held that the Federal High Court Kaduna went outside of its boundaries to inquire into the internal affairs of the party. In his ruling, the presiding judge, Justice Muhammad Umar, had said the claims by the plaintiff are substantial. Likewise, the decision by INEC and the National Working Committee of the party for a fresh primary, which did not hold, thereby rendering the claims by the defendants null and void. To technology now. The federal government says Elon Musk's satellite company SpaceX will be rolling out Starlink internet service before the end of the year, following a deal with the American company for the delivery of broadband service across Nigeria. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Issa Pantami, disclosed this at the U.S. Space Forum held on the sidelines of the just concluded U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C. According to the minister, as part of the partnership, SpaceX is to provide broadband access across the whole of Nigeria, enabling nationwide access to broadband connectivity way ahead of the December 2025 schedule, as outlined in the National Broadband Plan. With this collaboration with SpaceX Starlink, Nigeria is set to be the first African country to introduce the service. Starlink's rollout, when it eventually happens, will be coming 7 months after the company was issued Internet Service Provider license by the Nigerian Communications Commission. Meanwhile, 57.5% of the 17.5 million Twitter users that participated in a poll by the Twitter CEO Elon Musk have asked the billionaire businessman to step down from his role. In a tweet, Musk, who said he will abide by the result of the poll, asked users, "Should I step down as head of Twitter?" There has been no word either from Musk or Twitter whether he would step down or otherwise since the poll closed on Monday. Since taking over the microblogging site, Musk has clashed with users after making some policy changes, including drawing the anger of European Union for barring the promotion of other social media sites on his platform. Still ahead on the news at 10, National Bureau of Statistics says revenue from value-added tax rises by over 4% to more than 625 million naira in the third quarter of 2022. That's on Business News. Please join us again.
You're welcome back. Let's now take you to our earlier story on the conviction and sentencing of the Labour Party's Presidential Campaign Council's Director General, Dr. Donyo Kukwe, to 2 years in prison with an option of fine. Well, Dr. Donyo Kukwe has opted for the fine component and has now paid 13 million naira in fines before the deadline, which was given by the court. And now to some company news. Sajen Pharmaceutical Limited has formally launched its corporate brand to Nigerians. Sajen Pharma plans to drive innovation in the pharmaceutical industry with the aim of promoting overall communal well-being for all Nigerians. Established in March 2019, Sajen Pharmaceutical's goal is to develop and create access to high-quality medicines.
Sajen Pharmaceutical is introducing its corporate brand to the public as it continues to grow its product portfolio across various therapeutic areas. The company shows its new corporate identity and what the new products will look like. After the video presentation, Sajen Pharma Management speaks on the vision for the new line.
I have a beverage business separate under the Beverage Foundry brand name, brand platform.
On our spa water and portfolio, we've refreshed the entire range of our products on spa water, new packaging, and in addition to the packaging change, we have also introduced 2 new flavors to the range. So we have 4 flavors under the spa water portfolio, exciting new flavors.
You now know who we are, what we are about. You've now seen some of the things we've done with our products. You've now seen that we are ready to serve you, and you've now seen that we are a company that wants to be there for generations to come.
Sajen Pharma is developing access to high-quality medicine and reaching out to bigger communities and stakeholders.
As part of the main people in the pharmaceutical industry, we have been hearing about them, we've been trading with them, but they needed to announce themselves that we have arrived. We have come into the pharmaceutical industry as one of the stakeholders, a name for us to put in our hearts that they have arrived. So it's a good thing they did.
The managing director of Sajen Pharma, Charles Opunwi, speaks on the objectives and the new target for the company.
There's that gap in terms of manufacturing facilities and or pharma within our continent. I'm also within Nigeria, being a major market in Africa. We are not about importing drugs. We're about trying to establish that value chain and that supply chain within Nigeria and within Africa. So that's what this is about.
Sajen Pharmaceuticals says it will continue to build a wide-ranging portfolio of products across brands, plans to rapidly expand on its product line, and this brand launch is a step in that direction.
30 millionaires have emerged from the 30 million naira gang promo of leading dishwashing liquid Morning Fresh. The consumer promo is part of a series of activities to commemorate 30 years of its presence in the Nigerian market. At the grand finale in Lagos, brand manager Beauty PZ Cousins Mabel Fashion said this promo is to reward loyal consumers who have stayed through the 30 years of making life easier for caregivers. 3 consumers also won kitchen makeovers, while others went away with refrigerators and generators, among other prizes.
It's been 13 weeks of fun and reward at the Morning Fresh 30 million naira gang promo, as the popular Nigerian dish-washing liquid soap commemorates the 30 years of blazing the trail in the Nigerian market. Through the weeks, interested consumers have had to submit 2 labels of Morning Fresh 1 liter original or Zesty or the 700 milligrams antibacterial pack to qualify for the weekly draws, taking home generators, microwaves and washing machines, among other products.
Just wanted to give back to the people that shop for Morning Fresh. We wanted to give back to our consumers. So we've given ₦1 million each to 30 people, 30 consumers. We've given 3 kitchen makeovers to 3 consumers.
Never expected I was going to win. I never had it in mind. I just thought it was just normal. So I never had it in mind. I was at work when you called me and said I won the 1 million naira. I was so excited, but I don't even know how to express my joy when I had that call. I was just so happy.
At the grand finale in Lagos, raffles are drawn for the last batch of winners.
I'm happy to tell you that you've won 1 million naira.
The way my heart pumps, and when they pick up and you tell them, oh, you just won the double-door refrigerator, you just won 1 million naira, and then their reaction to top it all up, I don't think I would have wished for a better position every Friday like the past 13 Fridays have been.
Kitchen makeovers have also been a part of the deal.
We have put smiles on over 30 people this season. 30 millionaires and people that have won kitchen makeovers, people that have won kitchen equipment and all of that. And this is literally the best thing that can ever happen to you as a consumer of a product in Nigeria, especially in this season that we are in.
PZ Cousins says it is committed to ensuring that consumers experience ease in cleaning dishes and that the kitchen environment is better with the use of its leading products, Morning Fresh.
Well, it's now time for business news on the news at 10. Here's Will Ibang.
Thanks, Coyote. Now, 625.39 billion naira, that's the amount generated as revenue from value-added tax, VAT, in the country for the third quarter of this year. Now, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, as the NBS, in its latest report on the sectoral distribution of VAT for Q3 2022, the NBS says the figure represents an increase of 4.21% from the 600.15 billion naira generated in the second quarter. According to the report, local VAT payments for the period under review stood at 367.93 billion naira. Foreign VAT payments were 121.85 billion naira, while import VAT contributed 135.61 billion naira. Now, the Sugar Sweetened Tax Coalition of Nigeria is calling on the federal government to commence the immediate application of the proposed 10 naira per litre sugar tax on carbonated sugar drinks and beverages starting from January 1 next year. The coalition, which made this call today at an event in Lagos, says the government should not succumb to cheap blackmail from companies placing profit above the health of Nigerians. The coalition also gave some recommendations.
We are also recommending that beyond using the Finance Act, which is a yearly process, that the government should institute a sustainable legal framework for XXB tax with clear timelines that Nigeria attains the WHO recommended 20% tax of retail price. And we're also recommending that the government should begin necessary engagement to ensure that the policy that SSB taxes are dedicated to public health.
Now, outside Nigeria, Ghana has suspended debt service payments for its Eurobond and commercial loans, as well as its bilateral debts as the country undergoes debt restructuring. The Ghanaian Ministry of Finance made this known in a statement today on its website. Now, the suspension means that investors in Ghana bonds will be affected, as they will not receive any coupon payments until the situation is addressed. Meanwhile, the ministry says that the suspension will not include the payments of the country's multilateral debts or new debt contracted after December the 19th this year. Now we head to the stock market, where equities kicked off the new trading week on a positive note as it carried over last week's bullish sentiments. We have more details with John Mekwa.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the Stock Market Report. Well, the bull is still here from last week, occupying the floor of the NGX because it's a green Monday. And we expect that to put the all-share index in the green. That's right, it's in the green at 49,414.96. The market cap getting close to the 27 trillion naira. Hopefully tomorrow we will see 27 trillion naira. Fingers crossed. Now, the reason we have this is because of some major market movers. Boa Food is part of it. Big banks are part of it. Leading that, however, is GTCO, trading 16.6 million in volume today. GTCO contributed hugely to that green all-share index we saw, and we expect this to reflect in the sectors. That's right, the sectors. The banking sector is 0.12% up. Consumer goods, even much better. That shows you how well Boa Foods did today. Up more 1%, exactly 1%. And oil and gas, however, on the flip side. So it's a green Monday. Hopefully, 4 more greens before Christmas, depending on the sentiments of investors. That's the Stock Market Report. I'm John Mekwa. Back to you.
And that's it on Business News. It's back to Coyote for the rest of the news at 10.
Well, thanks, Will. Still to come on the news at 10. U.S. Congressional Committee investigating last year's storming of the Capitol asks federal prosecutors to charge former President Donald Trump with obstruction and insurrection for his role in the deadly riots. To join us again. Let's bring you news just in. The U.S. Congressional Committee investigating the January 2021 storming of the U.S. Capitol has asked federal prosecutors to charge former President Donald Trump with obstruction and insurrection for his role in sparking the deadly riot. The panel asked the Justice Department to charge former President Trump with obstruction of an official proceedings of Congress, conspiracy to defraud the United States, making false statements, and aiding or inciting an insurrection. Meanwhile, rescuers are still searching for 31 sailors unaccounted for after a warship carrying more than 100 crew capsized during a storm in the Gulf of Thailand. Simon Pusey has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The Thai Navy says 31 sailors are missing after a warship carrying over 100 crew capsized and sank during a storm in the Gulf of Thailand. Footage from on board shows the panic on the vessel. Authorities said they had rescued 75 sailors, but 31 were still missing in rough seas. The HTMS Sukhothai sank after water flooded its power controls on Sunday night. Search crews worked through the night to find survivors, with the operation continuing on Monday with Air Force assistance. Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, has been rocked by explosions as Russia launched a rare overnight attack on the city. No one was killed and most of the missiles were shot down, but some did hit critical infrastructure, causing a blackout across the region. The attack occurred before Russia's President Vladimir Putin arrived in Belarus to meet Alexander Lukashenko. Ukraine has warned that Russia may be preparing a new attack from Belarus. 5 people have died after a gunman opened fire at a block of flats in Toronto in Canada. Police responded to reports of the shooting at the building in Vaughan, about 30 kilometres north of Toronto, and shot the suspect dead. Another injured person has been taken to hospital in a serious condition. Authorities are investigating the motive, including a possible connection between the gunman and the victims. South Africa's scandal-hit President Cyril Ramaphosa has been re-elected leader of the governing African National Congress. He defeated his rival by 2,476 votes to 1,897. Mr. Ramaphosa won despite being dogged by allegations of money laundering and a last-minute surge in support for Mr. Mkhize, who has also been accused of corruption. Both deny the allegations. His victory puts him in pole position to lead the ANC in the 2024 election. US actress Amber Heard has settled her defamation case against her ex-husband Johnny Depp. Ms. Heard wrote on Instagram that she had made the difficult choice to settle, adding the decision was not an act of concession. She and Mr. Depp faced off in court earlier this year, where jurors heard intimate details of their relationship. A jury then found Ms. Heard had defamed Mr. Depp in an article in which she said she was a victim of abuse. And the Italian region of Umbria, also known as the Green Heart of Italy, kicked off its holiday celebrations with Christmas tree-shaped displays on a lake on the side of a mountain in Gubbio. An enormous floating display in the shape of a Christmas tree made up of 165 supporting poles, 7 kilometers of electric cable and 2,600 perimeter lights was lit in front of an audience of tourists and locals. The tree-shaped lights display is 800 meters high, 400 meters wide, and the lights are connected by over 12,000 meters of cables.
Thank you.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel's studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. After seeing the final game of the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar, Bayelsa State Governor Doyediri admits it's time for sports in Nigeria to start operating with international standards. In an exclusive interview with our sports correspondent Austin Okonakban in Doha, Governor Diri praised Qatar for their level of organization and believes it's time for government and the private sector to work together in developing sports in Nigeria.
There is this misconception and misunderstanding that government should be the driver. No, 1,000 times no. Government will provide the enabling environment in terms of a fair environment where the private sector will thrive. Government has to partner with the private sector. Well, you've seen the facilities there. When I say facilities, I'm not referring to only the football stadium. I'm talking about even the hotel accommodations. These are not owned by government. They're owned by private, corporate individuals.
Ballon d'Or winner Karim Benzema has announced he's ending his international career, and that was earlier today, a day after France lost the FIFA World Cup final to the Albiceleste of Argentina. Benzema, who scored 37 goals in 97 appearances for Les Bleus of France, had to withdraw from the World Cup squad before their first match in Qatar due to a left thigh injury he suffered in training. Benzema, who won the Ballon d'Or award for the world's best player in October, had been desperate to feature in this year's World Cup, having not been selected when France became world champions in Russia 4 years ago. He was frozen out of the France team for 5.5 years because of his involvement in a blackmail scandal over a sex tape involving his former teammate Mathieu Valbuena. A day after Argentina beat France to claim their third ever World Cup title, the streets of Doha, once packed with football fans and tourists, were empty earlier today. Now the teams have all left, and with them the fans and commotion. Even the bunting around the city was being stripped, along with the temporary fence that corralled the throngs in town for the football tournament. In the Corniche area, a picturesque boardwalk that served as the backdrop for countless social media posts, workers pulled down branding and World Cup installations and swept away the dust. And that's Sports News. I'm Ayo Tunde Balu.
Well, thank you, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, today said that citizens and the civil society must be involved in the electoral process to tackle vote buying. Also, the INEC boss was speaking in Abuja during a one-day stakeholders summit on the use of money during elections. Also today, human rights lawyer Femi Falana raised an alarm over what he described as an attempt by some elements to sabotage the 2023 general elections. And that's the news at 10 for tonight, everyone. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikili. To have a lovely night.